Hello, this is Snow White with my Bigfoot Diary Part 11. This video will cover April 2016, beginning with April 1st. We begin with the buttons in the shell. If you remember back on the 28th of March, I found them laying on the ground beside the porch undisturbed, so something had picked them up and put them on the ground. Today the buttons were again of interest to my Bigfoot friends. Things were also messed up on the railing. Here's how I found it. The 31st, I put an apple out, and on the 1st it was gone. Also, the car had been moved backwards, as you see, on the 1st. And those two ponds, the black and wooden one, were on the ground over here. And the dice were messed up, 4 of them. The 4 on the end, they were all turned over, as you can see, and the buttons were also messed with. Now I put them in the shell from large to small, purple, blue, and red. You see that they had picked up these 2 buttons, the blue and the red one, and turned them over. So that definitely took something with fingers. On the 2nd, just when I thought that they'd probably lost that die that they'd taken on March 16th, they brought it back. They'd had it for 16 days. They put it in their favorite spot on the railing where they returned things, and with the number 1 at the top again. Nothing else was disturbed except for the honey. It was moved just a little bit. And here's a picture where they put the die, the 1 at the top. On the 3rd, it had snowed overnight. Several things were on the ground, but most notable was the blue and yellow striped mouse was on the ground and had been disassembled. Which reminds me of the time that they had taken the other blue and yellow striped mouse and brought it back with the yellow part unraveled from the body. But this time, both strings were pulled away from the body. Also, a banana that I had put out was peeled and eaten. You can see the peel there on the ground. And the mouse, both strings torn away from the body, and it was in that shell up on the top of the picture. On the 4th, the day before, I put a little spool of white thread out on the railing, and I put it in a shell to keep it from rolling off. I had a feeling they might like this spool of thread. And apparently they did like it, because this morning it was gone, and nothing else had been messed with. It was in that shell. You still see that little clear button. They didn't take it. So anyways, I got tired of the peanut butter and honey being out there, so I opened them both up, and I put them out on the railing, and I put an apple out too. And I thought, if something else takes it, whatever, I just want something to take it. Then on the 5th, in the morning, the peanut butter had been knocked onto the porch. The apple was eaten or pulverized on the railing, porch, and ground. The honey, which was sitting right beside the peanut butter and the apple, wasn't touched, even though it was open and had no lid on it. So, I'm no animal expert, but if this had been a raccoon or possum, wouldn't they have at least knocked the honey off while trying to get at the peanut butter and the apple, if not wanting to eat it? So here you can see the peanut butter was sitting up here. Honey's not touched. Apple's pulverized on the railing. See, there are some markings in the peanut butter. We'll get to that in a minute. And the dolls were messed with a little bit. Now, the peanut butter, like I said, had been eaten, and there were marks in it that looked like grooves. And the grooves reminded me of the baby doll's nose from where it had either been scraped or bitten off. If you can see here, the grooves are evenly spaced apart, and they look just like the grooves on that baby doll nose. So I'm wondering if possibly it's from them taking their fingernail and digging in there to get the peanut butter out, and maybe They took their fingernail and scraped the nose and the toes off of the baby doll, too. Just a thought. And one more thing that I found that made me think it may have been a Bigfoot that did all this and perhaps got the peanut butter out of the jar with its fingernail was this. There was a really nice foot impression over in the grass right beside the porch. You can even see a toe. Now this measured 10 inches, and it is, if it's the same one that was coming up all this time, the juvenile, it was measuring 9 inches last year, so I'm thinking this is possibly the same one, but it's growing. You see it's 5 inches at the ball, 4 inches at the heel. On the 6th, the apple that was out there was eaten again, and the peanut butter was on the ground in front of the porch. Some more of it was eaten, but the edges were smoothed out. I'll show you that in a minute. And the honey was on the ground, spilled out. So here you can see it was smoothed around the edges this time. I went down and checked the baby doll, and it looked like the nose had been picked at some more. And then it was missing some more toes here. Same grooves and fingers. And it wasn't knocked over again. And I want to pause this a second, because what I'm thinking is if it was a small animal, it would have knocked it over doing that stuff to the baby doll. But if it was a Bigfoot, maybe it picked it up, messed with it, and then set it back down. These are just my thoughts on it. So anyways, I continued my walk, and I came back up the eastern path. I'm pretty sure I was being followed. Up on the hill to my right, which was really thick and hard to see up in there, I kept hearing something beside or just behind me. And this all started halfway up the hill. I heard sticks breaking like they were being stepped on, and I heard what kind of sounded like a woodpecker pecking, but not exactly. Then that sound changed to a call that sounded like a bird that I've heard before that sounds sort of clacky. I don't know how else to explain it. And then this followed me all the way up the hill, but it never left its position. I purposefully stopped and picked some flowers to see what would happen. It continued to stay behind me, or to my side, and I hoped if it was a Bigfoot that it would see me appreciating nature. Now, when I was almost to the end of the path, that bird call changed to a real gentle whistle, but the whistle had a vocal to it, kind of a high-pitched vocal. So I don't know of any bird that changes that many times from a woodpecker pecking to, you know, all the changes that I just explained. I really feel like I was being followed. So I got back to the house. I put some new things out on the railing, made some changes. Here's how I left it. It's just 3 dice out there now. Put a bunch of other stuff out. The banana out. Then on the 7th, the peanut butter was completely gone. I looked for it everywhere. The banana was partially eaten. The gorilla and the mice were on the ground, and the little Bigfoot doll was moved. On the other part of the railing, things were knocked off and moved around too. So you can see the banana. The little Bigfoot doll was moved pretty good there. The mice toys were clear over on the other side of the porch on the ground, and this stuff was all knocked around. I also found a couple foot impressions in the grass beside the porch. They were faint, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were, especially since they measured about 10 inches again. So you can see it here. Like I said, it's faint, but I could tell that's what it was in here. Also, in the tree at the front of the house, which is in the teardrop part of our driveway, we found a newly broken off branch that was about 8 to 10 feet up in the tree. Here. And here's a close-up of it. So, that happened overnight. I also found something really interesting laying beside the back porch. It hadn't been windy, so I don't think it blew there. There was a piece of a grapevine laying there. Now, I'd never seen those in the yard before, so I wondered if perhaps it was a gift. Maybe it had been on the porch, but got knocked over or blown off or something. I picked it up and I took it inside. I actually was surprised at how pretty it was. It had a really nice shape and it had a leaf in just the right spot that would make it balanced and artistic. I thought of yesterday when I was being followed. Had they seen me picking the flowers and thought I would like an organic gift? So I feel like it might have been a gift, so I picked it up and took it inside. Here's a picture of it. You can see the detail a little bit more. On the 12th, I was planning on taking a walk this morning, so I set the porch up and took pictures in case I had some visitors come up while I was gone. I left it around 9:30, and here's how I left it. So I went for my walk, and I started out down through Creepy Valley, and I went up the path from the pond. Then I headed back to the backfield and down the path to where the baby doll is. When I got to that point, I turned left. I got partway down that path, and I had a big surprise. There was a stick that was about 4 feet long, stuck in the ground on an almost 45-degree angle and right in the middle of the path. It wasn't there the last time I was down there. Really, it was awesome. Look at that thing. Isn't that pretty? I wonder what the purpose of that is. And it was solidly placed in the ground, I could tell, so I didn't try to pull it out or anything. I didn't want to disturb it. So I just left it alone. Took pictures. This is from the other side of it looking back. So I continued walking down there, and then I turned around and went back up the hill, started around the field towards the gifting tree. About 3/4 of the way there, not far from the wood line, I found this stick formation on the ground. It wasn't close enough to the wood line, though, that the sticks fell here. And you can see it's a triangle, and if you look at the placement of the sticks, it's really interesting how they overlap. But they don't overhang. Like this little one doesn't overhang this branch. And that's something I've noticed continues as a pattern, which I'll show you later. This is one of my favorite ones that I have found. So I went back home and I got to the edge of the yard and I found another stick formation. This one's a Y. And this branch below makes a right angle. But notice this doesn't overhang this stick either. And then you got this little stick up here in the V part. I don't know why that was just at the edge of our side yard, so. Now when I reached the porch, it was now 11:30 approximately. First thing I noticed was the crayon laying on the ground. I didn't see anything else with the paper, so I just put it back. But on the railing, things were moved. See, this little die was moved forward. This had been facing straight ahead, now it's sideways. The thimble was knocked off. So I went inside and I left the door from the outside into the garage open because I was going to open the house up and let a breeze through. Now I always prop it all the way open with a rock that I kick under it to keep it open. So I wasn't feeling well, so after I did that, I went and laid down for a while and I fell asleep. When I got up, and I walked back out to the porch, the back door wasn't all the way open like I left it. The rock was moved at least 3 or 4 inches, and the door was slightly shut, so there was no way that happened on its own. It's never done that before. I looked around some more, and I found that little spool of thread that they had taken back on. Hold on a second here. Getting ahead of myself. They took it on April 4th, so they had it for 8 days. And like you probably just saw, you won't believe where I found it. They'd brought it to the railing where they usually bring stuff back, but instead of putting it here, they stuck it behind the trim, the siding trim. I was like, what in the world? And they had taken all the thread off of the spool, and they stuck it in the hole of the spool of that it was on. So, I mean, I was dumbfounded. I mean, they took that thread, bundled it up, and stuck it through that hole. And they put it behind the siding. Why? Were they afraid they broke it and they were trying to, give it back, but hopefully I wouldn't be mad. I don't know. But it's so cool. I mean, that is interesting. That takes some real intelligence and thinking, you know. So that means while I was sleeping, they brought that thread back and maybe messed with the door too. The curtains in my room were open while I was sleeping, so it makes me wonder if they knew I was sleeping and they came up to the porch. Now that's the second time that that's happened during the day while I was taking a nap. So I'm going to start paying attention to that and taking note if it happens again. Now on the 13th, I'd put a banana, apple, and banana, apple, and a paper plate with some leftovers on it, chicken wings and pizza. In the morning, the apples were gone, all but 2 wings were gone, and the banana and pizza were not touched, as you can see here. Now, what kind of animal does that? Takes just like 2 wings and leaves 2, doesn't touch the pizza, doesn't knock the paper plate off, doesn't touch the banana, takes the apple. What animal does that? And then the mouse was on the ground beside this chewed up apple. What's that all about? So later on, I took a walk back up to the bedding area, and I noticed the stick formation at the base of the tree looked different than it was the last time I was there, especially from the back side of it. Now, these are pictures from before when I was up there, what it looked like on the front side of the tree. Now, this was added to that on the back side of the tree. And to me, this is a really interesting formation. First of all, you got a triangle, you got an X, you got this horizontal branch, and these two, and it's balanced. It's just beautiful. Then I started walking back into the bedding area, and I saw the stick stuck in the ground. There, you can see it again. That wasn't there the last time I was there either. Also saw these sticks leaning up against the fence line. And this, wasn't sure what this was, but see how it's flattened out here? Looks like something was laying on it. So I thought that was interesting. So I took a walk down to the dump area, and I just decided to sit down on this rock. It's a big old rock, and the banana wasn't there. This is from a different time, this picture. So I sat down on there, and I had my back to the dump, and I just wanted to sit there and listen, and I thought I had my phone recording. But later when I checked, the phone wasn't recording. But anyhow, as I sat there, I heard from behind me this thumping sound. And I thought it was coming from down in the dump. But then it happened again, and I realized it was coming from back behind the dump. So I got up and I walked back in there, and I found back in here somewhere a turned over plastic tub, like one of them that kids put toys in. And I am almost positive that they were over there banging on that upside down tub, because that's exactly what it sounded like. So I don't know if they were trying to get my attention or what, but it was really cool. And of course, my phone didn't record it. I thought I was recording, but it didn't record it. So I've never had my phone go haywire before, but it did that day. So anyways, I found more string laying around on the ground back there. Just a couple pictures of it here. It was kind of all over the place back there too. When I got back to the porch, the dice were moved and the little one was on the ground, or the porch. So I think they were up again while I was on my walk. April 14th. I had put a plate of fruit out the day before. And in the morning, the plate was on the ground, the fruit was gone, the little Bigfoot doll was in the corner, the mouse was on the porch, but the apple actually, oh no, I'm sorry, that was another time. Let's move on to the 15th. It was this day. Okay, the banana was moved off the plate, but the plate wasn't knocked off, and the apple was off of there too. So the apple was gone. These weren't disturbed. The plate wasn't knocked off, but how did, you know what? Something had to pick that banana up in the apple and move it without disturbing the rest of it. So that's how the rest of it looked. Oh, I'd also put that bucket that was sitting up on the railing, and it's, excuse me, let me back this up. Okay, the apple was gone. This bucket was sitting up here. So there was food in it, but it wasn't spilled out. So something had picked it up and put it there. So, like I was saying, something didn't disturb this, and it didn't spill that out, but it's laying there. And also there was dirt inside the bucket that wasn't there the night before, like something with dirty hands was digging in it and eating the food. So I walked around to the front of the house, and I found a stick stuck in the ground right beside the sidewalk in front of the porch. It was also on an angle, and it was stuck in the ground, so it's not like somebody just stepped on it or anything. And I was finding a lot of sticks stuck in the ground at this point, all over the property. Like this one. That same day we had driven to town, we came back, and on my way, I saw this in the field, which is about a mile from our house, but still on our property. And I had my husband turn around and go back, because I was like, that wasn't there before. And I mean, I've been over there taking pictures. I have walked back in there lots of times. I never saw that. And there's no other ones like it, so it's not a old fence post or something. So when we got back to the house, then we were putting the groceries away, and my husband came and said he wanted me to come out to the garage because he wanted to show me something. He had found on the outside of the garage a part to a sink that had been inside the garage. It was laying on the ground right in front of the big garage door. Like if it was shut, it was like right on the outside. And here's what it was. Now, I had taken this down into the woods and left it. I put that spring on there just for kicks or whatever, just to see if they'd like it. And they never did anything, so I brought it back, put it in the garage as a lost cause. Now, if you remember on the 12th, when I took that nap and left the garage door open, I think they came in and took that then, because they hadn't taken anything since that day. So I think that's why, because they had this. So they brought this back today and put it in front of the garage, probably because they took it from the garage. On the 16th, the day before, I'd left the food this way. Today the banana and the oranges were gone, and the paper plate was on the ground, but the apple was clear over by the glider, but it hadn't had any teeth marks or anything in it. Also, the shell was moved a little bit, and these dominoes were also moved a little bit. 17th, I found another stick formation at the edge of the yard again, same side of the house. This one's really cool too. I love the shape. And notice this doesn't overhang, and this stick is separate, but they are parallel, and that's just a really cool one. Anyways, moving on. April 19th, the girl doll was on the ground, and some food I put out was totally eaten. So after that, I started walking around the yard looking for anything unusual, and I found it. First of all, this is the doll. So the doll's on the ground there, but also the other dolls were messed with too. And then this was some stuff I started finding. This is like a Y stick and a T shape. And then right beside those two things were these two branches put on an angle, pointing at those ones. Then I thought this looked a little bit interesting. And I also found this not far from that one. See how it's crossing over this Y stick. Then this was in front of the house. I found this today. Notice these three sticks, how they shape, or they form a pointer, like an arrow, just like these ones that I'd found on October 2015 in the back field, which pointed back to the gifting tree. Now, they were very similar, how those two looked. And this is the one I found today, and it's pointing back here. And this is what I found back there. On the sidewalk was a pile of dirt with a Y stick in it. And it looked like something had taken its side of its hand and scooped the dirt into the pile. Like you can see it. Scoop, scoop, scoop. See? All these marks. And over here, that's either where they took their hand and scooped it, or it's a footprint. I'm not sure which. So I measured it, and that'll be coming up here in a second. This is how it looked. It almost looks like you can see toes here. It measured about 10-11 inches. So I'm not sure if that was scooped dirt or a footprint. This is a close-up of the dirt pile with the Y stick. You can see some of the scrape marks. And then right beside the footprint or whatever that is was this pointer. I think it's a pointer. Two sticks formed into a pointer pointing at that. And right beside it over here was this little tiny Y stick. And this was the bottom of it that had been broken off. It would have been here. So some more weird Y sticks looking things in the yard. And then this thing, I don't know what it is. It's cool. I'm not sure what the shape is, but it's not natural. Okay, the setup for the next day, I decided to simplify a lot. I just took everything in but this stuff. And this ring lit up, put the banana on the railing, and I moved the dolls down onto the porch floor. I figured I wouldn't have to worry about them falling off or what knocked them off. If they're moved, I'll know what moved them. So then on the 20th, the banana was gone. The ring was not touched. Didn't move. However, the little Bigfoot doll was moved. It was over here. Now it's laying this way. So I'm pretty sure they did that. 21st. I put 2 homemade oatmeal raisin cookies out and an apple in that little toy. 21st, 1 cookie was gone. The apple was gone, and this was turned around. So that was pretty polite of them not to take both cookies. I also found another stick formation in the side yard. 2 Y sticks put at a right angle to each other. Very interesting. 22nd. I put 2 bananas out, and 1 was gone, and the other cookie was gone. But the toys were on the ground. 23rd. I had put an apple and banana out, and they were gone. I'd taken this, I put that out that day. 24th, I put the fruit back out, took the apple, and I had taken that in because I didn't want it to get dirty. On the 25th, I put a bowl of vanilla pudding out with graham crackers in it on the railing the night before. This morning, it was sitting on the porch, right side up, empty, with none of it spilled out. See, it was sitting up there like that the night before. And then in the morning, it had been up here. Now it's over here, empty. None of it was spilled out on the porch. And there was dirt in it again, like something with dirty fingers had been scooping it out, eating it. So my son came over to take a walk and look for mushrooms down on the west side. He was gone a while, and he came back and he said, I'm not going down in there by myself anymore. I got growled at and I had a rock thrown. I was about halfway down the hill between the trailer and the pond, and I heard a growl come from behind me. Then when I went down to the pond, then I went down to the pond, and when I started back out from the opposite side of the hill from where the growl happened, I heard a great big rock come crashing through the trees, breaking stuff as it went. The Bigfoot, had moved from behind me on the hill and moved around to the other hill while I walked down below the pond. So I asked him how close the rock came to him, and he said it was about 40 yards. So I don't think they were trying to hit him with it. I think they were just telling him that they didn't want him down there. He was pretty shook up. But another thing is he had a gun on his side. And another thing is, he doesn't live here anymore, but when he did, they did a lot of hunting down in there. So I don't know if that had something to do with it, or maybe they were just busy that day and didn't want people down there. But anyways, it shook him up. And he's a outdoorsy guy, so he likes to hunt. And so I was pretty surprised. He said he ain't going back down in there by himself anymore. So moving on. April 26th. The night before, I put the apple and banana out, and the apple was totally gone, and the banana had been peeled and eaten. Bells were knocked off. So I went away for most of the day, and I returned home at about 6, and I found a gift waiting for me, and boy was I astonished at what it was. I saw it was blue, and it was up on that bench beside the tree. I looked closer, and sure enough, it was that same stuff that they'd given me in March, that little blue rock thing that I don't know what it was. Another piece of it, only this was a big chunk, probably 3 times as big as that other piece that they gave me. It's just beautiful. I still don't know what it is. That's one of the best things they've given me. I was just blown away. And they hadn't put anything on that bench since November 27th, 2015, when they gave me this other astounding gift. It was the stick with the slit and that bell put in it. Blows my mind. So on the 27th, the fruit was gone again, and stuff was knocked off. On the 28th, just the apple was gone, nothing else was touched. We were going to go away for vacation for a week, so I set things up hopefully to keep them happy while we were gone. We were kidding, maybe we thought we'd come back home and the porch would be ripped off the house. But I left the stuff in case, they wanted to get some fruit or something. So that will do it for April. This was a fantastic month, and I sure do love learning about these creatures. I hope you enjoy listening, and I feel really blessed, and I want to thank you for watching, and I ask you to please come back.